Hey everybody, welcome to another video in the Test Prep Dojo series on the GMAT. Gonna do another verbal question type today. Another sentence correction video. Again, love sentence correction, and just think this is something that there's a lot of free points up for grab on the exam and a lot of easy ways to lose points. So I think it's one that's definitely worth investing some time in. My name is Peter Mayer. I'm the founder and lead instructor of Test Prep Dojo. I love standardized testing and helping people get great scores. GMAT's probably my favorite exam, although I tutor a wide variety of them. And if you want to get in touch with me for tutoring or anything else, peter@testprepdojo.com. Please stop by the site and start exploring some of the free content, some free questions, and videos like this. Like, share on Instagram, Facebook, all that good stuff if you find it's useful content. So diving right in, super important topic today, which is this notion that the GMAT is difficult in some ways for people who have been writing and speaking English their entire life and have a pretty good ear for grammar and punctuation and all of that, although punctuation isn't really tested. The reason is these people tend to rely too heavily on what quote-unquote sounds right. The test makers know this, and they specifically design questions that sound awkward to people who are pretty comfortable reading and writing in English, and so they will select the one that sounds better, and then they'll lose out on those questions. So you don't want to do that. You want to know where the trouble spots are, where they'll try to trip you up, and be ready for it. And this is a great example of one of those instances. So again, I'm not going to read all the sentences and answer choices. You can pause the video and do that. So I would suggest you do that now. Read the questions and read the question and the answer choices. But basically, you will see that in this one, there is something in this sentence, specifically the Peter and me bit, which is a bit of a red flag. So I don't know about you, but I was always told it's Peter and I. And so anytime I hear me used like that, it sounds incorrect to me, and I want to mark it as wrong. But we'll see here that this is an instance of when we don't want to do that. So moving on, between Peter and I about the dent in his car, continued speaking about the argument. That sounds right. Peter and I is something I'm much more comfortable with, but we're going to go ahead and leave those two for now and move on to the next one. So again, the argument for C about the dent in his car continued for Peter and I. So this one it doesn't sound very good. It's wordy, and there's a couple things going on. So if you really read the author's intended meaning, you will see that there's sort of a meaning issue here. It's the intended meaning of the author is not for the sentence to be the argument about. It's an argument between two people, and so that's one thing that's troubling about C. In addition, the argument about the dent in his car, that sounds awkward because the preposition his it's not clear who that's in reference to. So that's awkward and sort of wordy, so that's another reason. Continued for Peter and I. So again, there's the Peter and I. Again, that sounds right, but we'll see that there's a bit more to that story. So I think there's enough going on to say it's probably not C. So moving on to D, the argument on the dent in his car, that's nonsensical. Again, it's one where, if you just keep an eye on what the author's intended meaning is, you can eliminate some of the answer choices. It's an argument between two people. On is nonsensical in the meaning. It has this same pronoun issue where his appears first, and then there's Peter and me, which we'll revisit later. But because of the initial, nonsensical meaning and wordiness, I'm going to get rid of this one. And then finally, the argument between Peter and I on the dent in his car, nonsensical. It's this prepositional phrase on the dent is not what the author is intending to say. It means something very different, and so we're going to go ahead and get rid of that one too. So we've been able to reduce it down to 2 finalists by looking at what's different and sort of pinpointing our decision points, which is part of the system that I always lay out for my students. So we have A and B, which are now our 2 finalists. And so we've done that essentially based on the first decision point. So even if we have to guess, we're already in much better shape. We're down to 2 out of 5 as opposed to 3 out of 5. So the issue that I alluded to at the beginning of the video, this notion of me versus I, this is one where it trips up people who rely on their ear, because me sounds awkward and it sort of triggers alarm bells. The issue here is this idea of what the subject of the sentence is versus the object. So I is the correct usage when it's a subjective pronoun and it is the subject is doing the action. So that is not what's happening here. The argument is the subject of the sentence, and in this case, the me, Peter and me, is the object, and so actually me is the correct usage. So the simplest way to think of it is if the pronoun is in reference to the subject or the entities in the sentence that are doing the action, then it's I. If they're the object or the entities receiving the action, then it would be me. So the argument between Peter and me about the dent in his car, so that has decision point 1. It's an argument between 2 people, so that's good. And decision point 2, I versus me, it has me, which is also good, so we're going to get rid of B, and our answer is in fact A. Another area that often trips people up, where there's a lot of free points up for grab, or free points at stake, depending on how you want to look at it, is the issue of the modifier at the beginning of the sentence. In this particular case, we have the modifier is the same for all the answer choices. It's not underlined. So you see a consummate gentleman. And so whenever there's a modifier at the beginning of the sentence, you know that you can eliminate some of the answer choices by really thinking about what the author's intended meaning is, who or what is that modifier intending to modify, and does it make sense? So just ask yourself those questions. So for answer choice A, is Stefan's etiquette and social grace a consummate gentleman? No, nonsense. A is gone. The gentleman is Stefan. So B, Stefan's etiquette and social grace, gone. C, Stefan's etiquette as well as his social grace, gone. We'll skip D. E, Stefan's social grace was matched. So again, the social grace is not the gentleman, gone. The only one in this instance that has it right is D, and so just by keeping an eye on the initial modifier, we've been able to quickly solve this one. It's basically free points, and we will take that all day long. So takeaways from today: remember the system, read the words carefully, grasp the author's intended meaning, and then when you want to go from a good score to a super score in verbal, it's when you can start to say, here's the intended meaning, and here are subtle differences in the grammatical construction of the different answer choices and what they mean based on that. And so good scorers will know the rules, and we'll have, maybe sometimes we'll have a good ear. Great scorers will be able to know the rules, and they'll be able to keep an eye on the intended meaning. Be wary of subject-object pronouns, I versus me, so on and so forth. This is an area where the test makers punish native or people who rely too much on their ear and just have been, speaking and writing in English their whole lives, and sort of are overly confident. That's something that is intentionally meant to sound awkward, that is in fact grammatically correct. So know where those trouble spots are, and then never miss a question based on a modifier at the beginning of a sentence. They're typically free points. Sometimes they'll shove a prepositional phrase in between the modifier and the subject to try to disguise it, but just cover that up. Read the sentence as if the prepositional phrase was not there, and make sure that the meaning with the modifier modifying based on its placement in the sentence, the subject or whatever the sentence is intended to modify makes sense, and you'll be served well by your efforts to do that. Again, thank you for watching. Please visit my site, testprepdojo.com. Free question banks, free videos like this. I publish every day, and so over time, if you keep watching my videos, I will go through pretty much everything you need to know to have success on the exam, and we'll look forward to seeing you on my next video.